So now we are going to continue with our study of the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Om Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarottam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi. I prostrate with folded hands before Patanjali, who benefited mankind by delivering yoga for mind, grammar for speech, and by removing impurities of body through medicine. So, in the last class, we dealt with the sutras, second and third of the first chapter. The second sutra defines yoga as yogas chitta vritti nirodha. And the third sutra speaks of the aim of the yoga. What's the aim of the yoga? That once we succeed in suppressing all the vrittis of our chitta, of our mind stuff, then what happens? Tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam. The third sutra spoke of that. That I am actually the Purusha, the conscious principle, who is witnessing the psychophysical existence. I am not identified with it. The moment the chitta vrittis are suppressed, are totally annihilated, when the mind is calm, then the drashta, the conscious principle, remains established in its real self. Tada drashtu, the witness, the drashta, swarupe avasthanam. It resides in its own swarupa, its own nature. It's no more getting identified with the thing which it is not. So that was the two sutras which we spoke of. So the goal of aim, the goal of yoga, the aim of yoga is to get established in our real nature by suppressing, by attenuating, by calming the vrittis, the modulations of the mind. The calming of the mind is actually viyoga, it's not yoga, it's something negative, but that results in the yoga. Unification. It's not even actually unification. In real sense, yoga is viyoga. Because I am taking away the things which I am not to get established in what I am. So then why the word yoga is used? At the beginning, I resort to my own mind. I am just resorting to my mind to purify it, gradually going to the state where all the vrittis has been removed, taken away, subtracted, and now I am established in my own self. Till I can do that, what's the state of our mind? What's the natural state of mind? That's being described in the fourth sutra, which we will study today. And after describing the natural state of mind, in the very second sutra, we spoke of the vrittis, the modulations. Now, unless we know what are the various type of mental modulations, we can never control it. Anything we have to control, first we have to have the knowledge about it. So what are the various types of vrittis? That will be dealt in the fifth sutra. And there are 5 types of vrittis that will be dealt in the fifth sutra. And one by one, each of those vrittis will be discussed till the 11th sutra. So now let us try to have a discussion on the fourth and the fifth sutra before we enter into the sutra 6 to 11 to have the specific discussion on each and every type of the mental modulations. So the fourth sutra, that after speaking that our aim is to remain established in our real nature by calming down the mind. The fourth sutra speaks of the natural state of mind, which is not allowing us to get identified with our real nature. And that's why we are constantly being identified with the various states of mind and thinking that to be me, I am constantly in the duality of my existence. Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I am full of sorrow, suffering. All this due to this joy and sorrow, these dualities continue as long as we are identified with the various states of mind, ultimately leading to our identification with our psychophysical existence. So what's the fourth sutra? Let us first read it and then go to the discussion. Vritti sarupyam itaratra. So when the vrittis have been suppressed, then you are identified with your real nature. But as long as the vrittis are there, it is almost impossible to get established in your real nature. The Upanishad speaks of the state of realization very wonderfully. In Mundaka Upanishad, there is a very specific term to indicate the state of realization. What's the term used in Mundaka Upanishad? They say the man of realization is nativadi, na ativadi. What does it mean? At present, we may be constantly speaking of our real conscious nature. By reading the scriptures, we feel we have understood, we have realized, I am the conscious principle. My attachment to this identification with the body, with the mind, is something erroneous. It is the outcome of ignorance. And I may think I have understood. But Upanishad is very specifically mentioning that it is ativada. I am speaking beyond my realization. I am speaking of something which I haven't realized. What's the proof of realization? That whatever may be the situation of life, nothing can perturb me. If it perturbs me, then it proves that I am speaking. I have an academic knowledge. I am having an intellectual conception of it. It is a conceptual knowledge, but it is yet to be realized. Swami Vivekananda used to give a very wonderful example that our condition is like a stag, a male deer. Very nicely used to say, one day a male deer was just standing by the bank of a reservoir, and it was seeing its own reflection, and it was bragging. What it was bragging? It saw its limbs, very muscular limbs, the male deer with the muscular limbs. It thought itself to be very strong. So it was bragging, to the young one. It was bragging to the young one, see how strong I am, see how strong my limbs are. And suddenly from nowhere, the stag heard the barking of a dog. It even didn't see, just heard the barking of the dog. And the deer started running frantically. And the young one also ran after it. After a long distance, when the stag was convinced that it is at safe distance, it stopped, it was gasping. The young one was surprised. The young one asked that just now you were so confident about your strength. You were so confident about your this muscular limbs, the strength. What happened to all that? Suddenly, what made you so much scared? And immediately that stag replied, I don't know what happens to my confidence the moment I hear the barking of a dog. And that's our condition in life. We think after reading the scriptures, I have understood. Or sometimes when we are in a bit, we a relaxed mood in our meditation, we think, oh, yes, it's the thing which I have realized. What is the proof that whether it's a realization or not? The proof is when we are in real crisis moment of life, the challenging situations of life, am I still in that calm equipoise nature? Still I'm established? If I get disturbed, agitated by being associated with my psychophysical existence, by being identified with my psychophysical existence, it's a proof of the fact that I'm speaking something which I'm yet to realize. That's why how nicely Upanishad says it is ativada. I'm speaking something. Vada means speech. Ati means beyond. So I'm speaking something which is beyond my realization. So once I realize, then there's no question of speaking beyond your realization. It's something like a man who have tasted mango and comes and speaks to a group of people who have not tasted the mango. The one who have tasted the mango, he says, the mango is a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful taste. It has a wonderful flavor. It's very sweet. Now, those who have not tasted the mango, they somehow have the idea of sweetness, of good flavor. And they think they have understood. They start associating that word with their own fund of available experience. Some start thinking, oh, mango is as sweet as the molasses, and it has the smell of jasmine. Someone may think, no. It has the fragrance of rose, and it's as sweet as honey. So what all of them are doing, they're trying to relate to those words with their available funds of experience. None of them are correct, though they think that they have understood. So till the realization dawns, our condition is like that. We may feel that I have understood, but actually it is ativada. It's beyond our realization. So what's the state we are in at present? As long as the vrittis are there, we are bound to get identified with that. That's the thing which has been spoken of in this sutra. Very nice. All the yoga philosophy is based on the Sankhya philosophy, the theory. On that, they have developed some practice. That's the yoga. The Sankhya philosophy, one of the treatises of the Sankhya philosophy is written by Panchashikha. So the Panchashikha very nicely have indicated what's actually the knowledge. There's only one knowledge. In one sutra, in Sankhya Sutra, what is there? Ekam eva darshanam khyati reva darshanam. There is only one type of knowledge. That is khyati. What is the khyati? Whatever is being reflected in your vritti. In the last class we were indicating. If the modulations of the mind are the vritti, the content, the thing which is reflected in that mental wave is the knowledge. The pratyaya, the contents, the thing which is reflected, that's the content. That is the pratyaya, and that is the knowledge, that alone. So constantly in our life, what is happening? In the mind, whatever is being reflected, whatever I'm perceiving, with that I am constantly getting identified. Very nicely in the Vyasa Bhashya, on the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Vyasa has written a commentary. In that he's giving a very nice example. What he's saying? Just when in the front of a prism, if you keep a red flower is just kept in the proximity of the prism, and the prism appears red. It is not really red. Just by being in proximity of the red flower, it gets the tinge of redness, which is apparent, which is not real. Similarly, the conscious principle, which in no way is affected by the happenings of the psychophysical existence, it being in association with the body-mind complex, immediately takes its tinge, which is apparent. It's not real. Just the way the redness of the prism is not real. It's just apparent. By being in proximity of the red flower, it appears to be red. It's not really red. Similarly, the conscious principle, the Chitti Shakti, we should always remember in Yoga Sutra, the terms are very important. When I speak of Chitta, it means the mind stuff. But when I use the word Chitti Shakti, it means the conscious principle. These two are not same. The Chitti Shakti, the conscious principle, appears to be tinged by the psychophysical existence as long as the vrittis are there. Immediately gets associated. In the Vyasa Bhashya, they are resorting to another very nice example. The magnet, by its nature, if you know that the magnet, what is nature? It will be constantly drawing towards itself the iron or the iron filings. Anything which is constituted of iron, it will draw towards it. And that way it serves certain purpose of the man, of the master, who is the owner of that magnet. The man who owns that magnet, he loves that magnet. Why? Because it serves certain purpose. You know that the old man, when walking with a walking stick, sometimes it happens, as he cannot bend, there will be some magnet in the end of the walking stick. He has kept it there. Why? That if something falls, which is made of iron, as he cannot bend, very easily with the walking stick, he can get the thing which has fallen. So it serves certain purpose, and that's why that magnet is something very valuable to that person. He is very fond of that. So Vyasa is saying our mind is like that magnet. It's constantly ahara, it's constantly gathering in through the 5 sense organs: the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the skin. This, our sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. Through these 5 senses, the mind, like the magnet, is drawing in these 5 perceptions, which constitutes our universe. There's nothing beyond that. These 5 senses constitutes our universe. The mind is drawing in constantly all these 5 senses. Through these 5 senses, it is drawing in. And as it is constantly drawing into the 5 senses, just like the way the magnet is something very much preferred, something liked by the owner. Here also, the Purusha, who is not one with the mind, but because of this function, it develops so much attachment to it that as if it becomes one with it. Its love makes it as if one with it. And anything which is happening in the mind, it starts thinking it's happening to him. But actually, it's in no way affecting the real me. In English, one word is used to explain too much of self-obsession. If you will find in the dictionary, the word is narcissistic. That if you are too much self-possessed, we just are not bothered about the world, always possessed with myself. I think too much of myself. I'm obsessed with myself. Then such type of person are called narcissistic. This word narcissistic came from a Greek legendary character whose name was Narcissus. Now, this Narcissus was the young prince, very handsome, extremely handsome. But he was so much obsessed by his own beauty. Throughout the day, he forgot all his responsibilities. He will just simply, what he will do? He will go to the bank of a huge reservoir which happened to be on the back of the palace. He will go there, stand by the bank of that huge reservoir and see his own reflection. He was so infatuated by his own beauty, that was his only work, as if just looking at his own reflection, infatuated by his own beauty. And one day what happened, a very interesting thing, what happened? He was so much infatuated by his own beauty, by his own reflection. He thought that reflection to be real and wanted to embrace it. So it jumped into the reservoir with an attempt to embrace its own reflection. It drowned, Narcissus drowned and died. That's the story. So in spiritual sense, we are all narcissistic. Though we are actually that Chiti Shakti, that conscious principle, but seeing as if our reflection in this psychophysical existence, the psychophysical existence is actually inert. It is just like the hard disk of your computer. It's just like the integrated chip of your computer. It's inert when there is no voltage passing through it, there is no current passing through it. It appears to be just like a dead log wood. It's inert. But a world of virtual reality is created the moment the bias voltage is passed through those integrated circuits. And immediately it becomes lively, as if it has got life. The same thing, we think the mind to be something which is conscious, but actually it is inert. Just like that hard disk of the computer, it is inert. The conscious principle, by an association of the conscious principle, it appears to be active. It appears to be full of consciousness. And the moment it appears, the conscious principle, seeing its reflection in the mind, thinks itself to be the mind. And there all the problem starts. So that's in spiritual sense, that's what's constantly happening with us. And the moment I get identified, what happens? I think I see the thing. A red flower is there in front of me. I think it is I who am seeing that red flower. Actually, now what has happened? The conscious principle has activated the mind. The moment the mind is activated, it immediately breaks into vrittis, modulations. And those modulations, the flower is as if reflected. The pratyaya is the flower. It is not I. It is just the reflection which is being, it is a thing which is being reflected there. But I think I am seeing it. So I become one with the illumination. In the previous class, we indicated that's the sattva. And then, very interesting thing, what is the tamas? When the flower I am not seeing, the idea of the flower is there in my mind. All those piecemeal perceptions, very interesting. In our mind, the perception never happens as a whole. Even if you study neurology, very interesting thing, how the perception happens. It's not that the red flower is outside, the entire flower is being perceived in a particular part of the brain. No. The color, the redness is perceived in the color perceiving center. The shape of the flower is perceived in some other center where the shape is perceived. If it has a smell, that smell is perceived in the smell perceiving center. And all these piecemeal perceptions get synthesized to give you a sensation of the flower. Very interesting. All those piecemeal perceptions which are happening in your mind is already there. The external world is just a suggestion to activate all those centers. And they all synthesize to give you a picture of the whole. Now, all those piecemeal perceptions which are lying inert in your mind, they are the tamas, in darkness. The sattva comes and illumines them. They all synthesize to give you a sense of flower. In the morning, you wake up, from the window you see the flower. So already the sattva and has activated the tamas. These three gunas are constantly interacting, changing. The sattva, the tamas, sattva and rajas, they are not something in watertight compartment. The tamas is being activated by sattva. And now I have the sensation of that flower, and immediately the response comes. Oh, such a beautiful flower. Morning I wake up, I see it. I go out, pluck it, bring it inside my house and keep it to be offered to the altar. I have an altar, beautiful altar in my house where I have my own deity. I think, let me go and offer it there. So you will find this wonderful interaction of sattva, rajatama is constantly happening in your life. Can you think anything apart from this? Actually, sattva, rajatama is nothing but the stimuli response conditioning, which we have developed because of our identification with the psychophysical existence. So constantly, as long as I'm associated with the mind, what is happening? I am constantly getting identified with the three gunas. Now, when we read the scriptures, we read it very interesting, as those terminologies are not used in the modern days. What happens? We sometimes cannot make the head and tail of it. This three guna is actually, in the modern way of translating, is nothing but the stimuli response conditioning. Sattva is the stimuli, the illumination. All the piecemeal perceptions, before the perception happens, are the tamas lying there. All the concepts are there in your mind. Unless the concepts are there, there can be no knowledge. They're already there. This illumination is the suggestion that activates them. And then I have a sensation of a whole, something like flower or whatever I say. These tanmatras have congregated to form the Panchabhuta. And now I move out. That is a response, the rajas. I move out to just respond to it in a particular way. So the sattva rajatama is actually the stimuli response conditioning. A rock, an inert matter, cannot respond that way. That's why it is inert. We are constituted of these three gunas. We say, why? Because constantly we are intermingling with the world, with the stimuli response conditioning. And why it is happening? Because the real me, which is beyond any type of these dualities of life, the happenings cannot affect the real me. But the moment I get identified with it, immediately I become klishta, this afflicted. And I start responding to the stimuli response conditioning, thinking them to be something which is my nature. I start thinking I am Trigunatmika. Actually, the mind is Trigunatmika the moment it gets associated with the conscious principle. So that's the thing which has been indicated very nicely in the fourth sutra. The vritti sarupyam. The moment you are in sarupyam, means in association with the vrittis, then you become identified with them. And that constitutes the natural state of existence, which is full of dualities. Nothing you find is a permanent state of existence. For some time we are joyous, the next moment we find again we are in abject misery. These dualities, we are just thronging, we are just oscillating in this duality for ages together because of our identification with the chitta vrittis. So that was indicated in the fourth sutra. And now the fifth sutra speaks of that our duty, we understand that to calm the mind, to get rid of the vrittis. But unless we know the nature of the vrittis, it is very difficult to get control over them. That in English we say knowledge is power. That the moment you have the knowledge of a thing, now you have the power over it to control, to manipulate, to deal with it. Unless you have the knowledge, you cannot deal with it. So first we have to know what these vrittis are, how many types of vrittis are. So that is being described in the fifth sutra. What it says, vrittaya, panchataya, klishta, aklishta. Now, there are five, vrittaya, pancha, there are 5 types of vrittis. There are 5 types of vrittis, and each of those 5 types are again divided into 2 categories. There are 5 types of vrittis, and each of those 5 types are again having 2 categories. What are those 2 categories? It may be klishta, afflictive, aklishta. It may be non-afflictive. Klishta, aklishta. So what are the 5 types of vrittis that gradually will be described from the 6th to the 11th sutra? So now let us try to understand that what the word klishta means. The klishta means the one who is associated with klesha. As we told, the Yoga Sutra, in the Yoga Sutra, is full of technical terms. And unless you know the exact meaning, you will miss the point. Now, what is klesha? In Yoga Sutra, it will come. In succeeding sutras, this idea of klesha will come. So they say there are pancha klesha, 5 types of klesha. What are they? Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Now, if you try to memorize, you may forget. But if you try to understand the sequence, then you will easily remember that what these 5 kleshas are. And you will never forget. Very interestingly, very scientifically, they have categorized. First comes avidya, the ignorance. From that comes asmita, the ego, sense of ego. From that comes raga, dvesha, and abhinivesha. What are they? Raga means attachment, dvesha means aversion, and abhinivesha means clinging to life. Extreme clinging to life, which actually indirectly means our fear of death. Any fear at last boils down to the fear of death. Abhinivesha actually indicates that which has totally infatuated us. Abhinivesha is that which has totally infatuated us, is the fear of death. What actually is speaking? Let us come one by one, these kleshas. Ajnana. That as whatever we have discussed, you will all understand that what is the ignorance? That though I am that eternal conscious principle, because of my association with the body-mind complex, I start thinking myself to be the psychophysical existence, to be the body-mind complex. This is ajnana. Atasmin tad buddhi. To have the sense of identification with something which I am not. A thinking atasmin, that which I am not. In that tat buddhi, in that I have the sense of my own identity. Atasmin, that is ignorance. From that, what is happening? That though I am that conscious principle, which actually is non-local, which has no locality, a sense of space is not there. It is beyond any sense of locality. First, it becomes localized. That conscious principle being reflected in our psychophysical existence, I start thinking that this is me. The skin is the boundary, that I am, whatever is within this skin boundary is me. My mind, my senses, my body, what this constitutes me. So, because of ignorance, the Purusha, which is non-local, gets localized in this psychophysical existence. So that is asmita. This getting localized in the psychophysical existence gives the sense, this is me, me, me. That is asmita. That's the ego. So from ignorance comes the ego. The next 3 very naturally follows. Raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. To give a common example to understand this raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Even in a small microbe, what to speak of the human being, in a small microbe, the same thing has happened. The conscious principle, which is beyond time-space causation, it starts thinking itself to be associated with that small microbe and thinks, I am that small microbe. And the moment it gets associated with that small microbe, what happens? That example which we give again and again, in a petri dish in a laboratory, the teacher has asked you to look through the microscope that what is there in the petri dish. And you see that there's all randomly moving particles. And you think they're all inanimate, randomly moving particles. Now the science teacher says, what she does, she puts a drop of nutrient in the center of the petri dish and again asks us to see through the microscope. Now we see that among all those randomly moving particles, a few have gathered direction. They're moving towards it. So this is raga. That in the moment I get identified with the psychophysical existence, I start thinking this is me. Anything which is favorable to its existence, anything which is pleasing to its existence, I think it is pleasing to me. It is favorable for my existence. Though I am beyond all conditions, I start thinking that this is favorable for my existence because I have identified with that small entity. And whatever is favorable, I am drawn towards it. So now you will understand, from ignorance comes asmita, ego. From the ego comes raga, attachment towards all the things which is favorable for my limited psychophysical existence. And instead of nutrient, if I would have placed some toxin droplet in the center of the petri dish, what would have happened? All those microbes, we were moving towards it. Now you will find they're moving away from it, running away from it. The direction have changed. Why? Dvesha. The thing which is not favorable for my psychophysical existence, as I'm identified with it, now I have developed that hatred for it. I want to be away from it. Now, if the thing which is not favorable for me, I try to fight. But sometimes the thing is very powerful, like death. We know we can never get rid of death. At last, the death is waiting there to end up our psychophysical existence. I cannot win over it. So what I do, I run away from it. That is the abhinivesha. So in short, this dvesha and abhinivesha can be translated as fight and flight response. Raga is attachment. The moment I get attached to the psychophysical existence, it finds expression as this raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. So now you will find it's a very simple idea. Because of the terminology, sometimes we get confused. So because of ignorance comes this asmita, my attachment with this limited psychophysical existence. From that comes raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Now, all the 5 types of vrittis will be discussed from the 6th to the 11th sutras. But here they are saying what? That each of those 5 vrittis can be klishta, can be afflicted by these 5 kleshas. Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. If I am attached to my psychophysical existence, then all those vrittis become klishta. But if I am practicing to be aware of the fact that I am not identified with the body-mind complex, I am separate from it. I'm the conscious principle. I just try to keep that idea always in my awareness and start my journey in life with that awareness in the background. Then all those 5 types of vrittis start becoming aklishta. So this is the idea. Whatever may be the vrittis. Why they are saying this all the 5 types of vrittis? So this is something very, if you reflect on this sutra, one wonderful idea comes out. That generally we segregate our spiritual life from our secular life. There is as if a watertight compartment between the two. And in the morning I wake up, I just have my shower, and then I meditate for a while. If I get time, I meditate for a while. After that, I come out from my meditation, and now I have my breakfast. I have to go out for my work. So my spiritual life is still before the breakfast. In the words of Ramakrishna, Amader Adhyatikata Jalojog Purjanta, that our spirituality is still the breakfast. Why? That we have separated it, segregated, that this is a watertight compartment. This is spirituality, the rest is secular. But here itself, in the very 5th sutra, Yoga Sutra is simply dissolving this boundary by saying all the vrittis. There are 5 types of vritti. Throughout the life, there cannot be any vrittis apart from those 5 types. But know it for certain, all those 5 types of vrittis can be aklishta. If I know the trick, yoga, karma, sukoshalam, in the Bhagavad Gita it has been mentioned. If I know the art of living, I can convert each and every of those vrittis as aklishta. Though by default, by our just obvious, by our default nature, the thing by which we have acquired through birth, it is klishta, but I can make it aklishta. So that's the idea which is being indicated in this sutra. So what's the idea of the klishta and aklishta? So as long as those five vrittis, what are those five vrittis? We will take up later. But each of those five vrittis are klishta as long as it is associated because of ignorance with all the pancha kleshas, with avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. As long as it is associated with that, it is klishta. Now, what is aklishta? When I am no more associated with that. But that's in the ultimate state of spiritual life. At the beginning, what can we do? At the beginning, this aklishta vritti in the secondary sense means through sravana, manana, nitidhyasana. We try to get associated with the idea more and more that I am not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the senses, I'm beyond that. I am the Chiti Shakti, I'm the conscious principle. What is happening? I may have no control over it. I may have no capacity to change it. But I need not get associated with that. I don't own them. They are just like a procession in front of me. I am apart from them, witnessing them. And this makes a big difference. Whether you are out of the stream, just watching the flow of the stream, or you're in the stream. If you're in the stream, you are drenched, you are drowned. If you're sitting by the bank and just watching the flow, you're just enjoying. So aklishta vritti starts at the very beginning, when I am yet to get established in that idea. I have heard from the scriptures through sravana. I have heard the scriptures speak of that state of our existence. I have heard. And then I am cogitating on it. Manana. Now, when I am cogitating, you will find that many things in the scripture doesn't make any sense at the beginning. So, in the scripture, they speak of Shraddha. Have faith in the words. Don't simply, as you don't understand, simply deny them. Then you can never learn. Just to give a common example, if a primary school student or in the secondary school, he is reading for the first time the Einstein's this equation, E is equal to mc square. This energy and matter is interconvertible. And that equation actually speaks of the relation between the energy and matter. And now the child asks, unless and until you can prove it, that equation, I am not going to believe it. The teacher will say that now your understanding is limited. You have to take it as a working principle. Only when you are a postgraduate student, then it will be possible to understand the equation, how it can be proven. Now you have to take it as truth and just proceed. Similarly, in the spiritual life, whatever the scriptures speak, there may be a lot of gap in our understanding. The scriptures say have Shraddha. Faith is having belief in the word of the Guru and in the word of the scriptures. Just the way we have the faith in the doctor. When I go to the doctor, I know nothing of the medical science. I know I have some disease. I go to him with a faith. Whatever he prescribes, I never say, first you have to explain me the details of it. That what's the symptoms, how this medicine acts on those symptoms to get rid of them, to get rid of the disease. Unless you explain, I won't take the medicine. The doctor will be helpless. He has gone through some years of studies and then now he understands. And unless I have faith in his words and just say that unless you explain, I am not going to take that medicine, the doctor is almost helpless. He cannot help me. So we go to the doctor with the faith. Why we have the faith? I know that he's not a quack. He has gone through the course. He has studied the medical science thoroughly, which is well researched. and he is the one who is authorized, as he has studied it, to prescribe as per that available fund of experience. So in spiritual life also it's the same. The guru, the spiritual teacher, he has gone through that. The words of the, what is the words of the scriptures? He has studied it thoroughly. He has practiced it. He has went to the realization. Now when he is speaking, unless I have faith in his prescription, it's very difficult for me to proceed in the spiritual path. So at the beginning, it's not that I wouldn't want question. I won't just question my misunderstanding. I will. But I should not doubt the ultimate dictum which has been spoken. Have faith in that and humbly accept the fact that I am not having sufficient fund of knowledge to understand what has been spoken of in this scripture. I'm having sufficient humility to just accept that, and taking that to be the working principle, gradually I go on contemplating on those words and my understanding gets cleared. And then you have some mental conviction. Yes, what has been spoken of is true. It's an intellectual conviction. It's not realization. Somehow your doubts have cleared. Intellectually you feel, yes, what has been spoken, it's true. Now comes nididhyasana. Nididhyasana is the contemplation on your intellectual conviction. That will gradually transform your mind, taking you to the ultimate realization. So this is the sanam bonum of the spiritual practice. And the one who has started this, whatever may be his kleshas of the pancha kleshas, his practice can go on in all the states of his existence, not only when he is meditating. And that's why it has been indicated that there are 5 types of kleshas, 5 types of vrittis that will be spoken of from the 6th to the 11th sutras. But each of them are both klishta and aklishta. What's our attitude towards them? In the scripture, they speak so it gives a very interesting example. So this is the lock and key. When the key is turned in one direction, it locks. In another direction, you move it, it unlocks. The same mind, the same vrittis. When I am dealing with it in one way, it takes me spirally downwards, making me more and more bound to this quagmire of existence. I suffer. And if I know to deal with these vrittis, and just like the key turning in some other direction, I just use the same vrittis to evolve out. It can take me spirally outward and ultimately can help me to transcend the limitations of my psychophysical existence and enjoy freedom in this very life. This is very important, that whether it is yoga or it is Vedanta, they assure about one fact, that you did not have to die to enjoy that salvation, to enjoy the freedom, to enjoy the heavenly existence. They both say it is possible here itself, iha, here and now. It can happen here and now. So that's why even Vivek Churamani, Shankaracharya is saying, what is the aim of the human life? Jivan mukti sukha prapti hetave janmadharana. To enjoy this freedom of living, this joy of liberation, even when you are in the body, to enjoy the bliss of liberation, even when you are in the body. You are in the body, but you are not attached to it. Just like the water in the lotus leaf, it never stays there. The lotus leaf is always in the water, but it can never be drenched by the water. So just like that lotus leaf, when we can live in this world, when the worldliness cannot drench me, I can just remain as a witness in all the situations of life, then all the vrittis can become aklishta. So that has been spoken of. So if I go on practicing, at last, in the primary sense, what happens? I really get established in that idea. then nothing. At the beginning, it's a practice. At the end, it becomes a spontaneous state of my existence. This practice takes me to a realization where this realization brings the spontaneity in my life, where nothing can affect me. In primary sense, that spontaneous state of my witness attitude is the real aklishta vritti. But in secondary sense, even the practice is also considered as aklishta, because this takes me to that state. So all the 5 types of vrittis, which will gradually take me to that realization, are all can be aklishtas. Now, what are the 5 types of vrittis? That we will take up again in the next class. And we'll find very interesting how meticulously, how analytically, even in thousands of years back, the yogis, those who were dealing with this yoga shastra, have dealt with the mind. How thoroughly they have understood the nature of the mind. Just by even going through these 5 types of vrittis, you will find you can in no way find any other states of mind beyond that 5. How nicely they have analyzed the state of mind by speaking of those 5 types of vrittis, which we will again take up in the next class. So with this, we stop our discussion. Now, just I'm unmuting. If just some 10-15 minutes, we can have some.
Swamiji, a quick question.
Yeah, please.
What the Yoga Sutra calls Purusha, is that the same thing that we refer to as Ishvara or the God principle? One.
No.
One. And second is the Purusha, which is not bound by time or space. Yeah. How can it be so deluded as to identify itself with the psychophysical unit that we call the self? So, I mean, how is that possible?
So we will gradually, that as we gave that example, it's very apparent. It never actually happens. It's apparent. Just the red flower in proximity, that prism is there. In proximity, it appears to be red. It's never red. It's just an appearance. So here also, in proximity, it appears to be affected, but actually it is not getting affected. It is always in the same state. It's in no way getting affected. And this question has been actually, when in scripture, sometimes it becomes very difficult to understand. Swami Vivekananda is giving a very nice example. With that, we can understand the entire spiritual journey. The example goes like this. So with my eyes, I can see everything. But can I see my own eyes? No. I need a mirror, isn't it? I need a mirror to see my own face. So Swamiji is saying a very interesting thing. The Purusha, just to know its own nature, as if needs a mirror. The entire universe is the mirror. Now, when I have a mirror, the surface of reflection, if it is not very clear, it's not something properly reflecting, then the reflection won't be my exact replica. So Swamiji is saying that first, to have see my own reflection, I may use some shining metal. You get an outline, but it's not the exact image. Then you may have a mirror, but which is full of dust. Then also you don't have the exact your own image. And then you clear the dust, you see your own reflection. Now you're satisfied. So Swamiji is saying very nicely that the Purusha, by projecting out the universe, is as if trying to see the reflection there. The entire process of evolution is cleansing the mind, is making the mirror more and more clear. At last, in the human life, it's only in the human being. In the human life, it is possible. What is possible? To clear off all the dirt. The mind becomes like a plain reflecting mirror where you can see your own reflection. Once you are seen, you are satisfied. Now there is no need of the mirror. It falls apart. So though you are all knowing, but just as the way I can see everything, I cannot see my own face. The conscious principle to realize its nature goes through this rigmarole, through this entire thing, which we call evolution. So in science, the evolution which has been spoken of, even in Vedanta, we agree with that. But in science, what happens? In science, what happens that evolution is thought to be linear. That constantly we are evolving, there is no end. But in spiritual science, we say a time comes when I find that to find my real nature in the reflection is never possible. I'm already perfect. When that realization comes, the renunciation comes. I get rid of the thing on which I was seeing my reflection and again get established in my old nature. So evolution is a cyclic process, which all the development is happening in ignorance. When the ignorance falls, the renunciation comes, I go back to my real nature. So in this way, to a certain extent, we can describe that why the self, which is perfect, has to go through this rigmarole of this spiritual discipline. So that's the one thing. The other question at the very you asked,
Ishwara and Purusha.
Ishvara and Purusha are not the same. In Vedanta, in yoga, there are some difference. Even in Vedanta, this philosophy, there is some subtle difference. Even in Vedanta, the self is not the Ishvara. In a different way, it has explained. And in yoga also, we will come to the concept of Ishvara. In yoga, Purusha, Ishvara is also one Purusha. There is not only one, in Vedanta, there is only one conscious principle which is appearing as many. In yoga, there are innumerable Purushas. We all are discrete unit, the Purushas. It's like a seed falling on the ground, and immediately it sprouts. So all the Purushas are like the seed. The nature is one. In that we fall, and as per the nature, as per the mind which we, get associated, we have our own individuality. Just to give a common example, when you go to the mobile shop, all the mobile phones are same. The one, suppose your Samsung has a particular brand of mobile, all are same. But the moment you purchase it, buy it, and you personalize it, you fill it with your own contact details and all. Now that becomes different from others. But basically, it was all same. So nature is same. To each Purusha, as per his way, as per his way it is dealing with the nature, it develops all separate, integrated individuality. So that's, and Purusha and Ishvara, we will come to that concept. He's also one of those Purusha who never gets deluded. We are the one who get deluded, but Ishvara is a Purusha who never gets deluded, who is always aware of his real nature, and he is there continuing from one cycle to another cycle, kalpa to kalpa. He's always there as the Adi Guru, as the eternal teacher. Because when after one kalpa from at the end of this cycle, when the next cycle starts, there should be someone to instruct the embodied beings of that cycle to the spiritual truths. So there should be someone, predecessor. So Ishvara is the one who continues from cycle to cycle as the Adi Guru, eternal Guru. So in the yoga, that's the way of dealing with the concept of Ishvara. It's not exactly the same. The Vedanta deals with the concept of Ishvara. We will come to these discussions because it needs a bit explanation. But just as you asked the question, I gave you just a bit hint that Ishvara and Purusha is not the same. But Purusha is also, Ishvara is also a Purusha, but he is a Purusha Vishesha, a particular Purusha who never is in the quagmire of ignorance. He's always about it. And that
Thank you, Swamiji.
Yeah. So let us stop the class today.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
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 Namaskar. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you. Thank you.
Namaskar.
Good night.
Swamiji.
Good night.
Good night.
Swamiji. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Swamiji.
Swamiji. Hari Om. Good night. Hari Om.
Thank you. Hari Om.